Well, welcome to week number 5. I trust you are enjoying the Callings book and that you're actually giving yourself the half hour that you need to sit and be with the Lord and look at other people's lives. You know, when I was in seminary, I think that in part I learned to be this polished speaker, polished person, and I have since learned that, we can just be who we are. I think we've professionalized ministry so much that sometimes we're, this person when we're out in front of people and we're totally someone different when we go home. And I think that we should know our boundaries, but at the same time, I think it's okay, at least in a course like this, that we've just got to talk about who we really are. I used to do all my videos for these sorts of courses in my garage with the sheet in the background. I wanted to start my own YouTube channel because there were theological things that I never really got to talk about in my other courses, and so I wanted to put together a studio and get some equipment, and a person allowed me to do that. I had a few people in my life that gave me some money to kind of put this thing together. The stuff that I have isn't from Fuller, and I'm just real grateful for it. But my point here is that there's this kind of front side of Traver, the one I can present to you like this, but then there's a backside too, and I want to talk about that backside. So here's my little studio, I guess, from the other side. I actually don't work up here very much. I work downstairs because I love to be around people. And, here's my little desk that I do sometimes use on occasion. And here's the rest of the room that you never see. And over here is my laundry baskets. I have real laundry that we do. I have a little dog that doesn't always go potty in the right place. And so we have this little boundary here, and all that is it's filters for my air conditioner. Here's my hallway, and this room is actually pretty important to me. This served as a cave, and I want to tell you about that cave. That cave was my home for maybe 6-7 months. All right, now we're back in my makeshift studio here. So that's my son's room, and I planted a church here in my area. And it would take me a really long time to tell you why I am not the pastor of that church anymore. And it was all for the right reasons. I actually got to volunteer to not be a part of it anymore. But there was a time where it didn't go super well. And I was learning how to function within the context of a board, and I was learning how to be a pastor and plant a church, and I was fearful of money and all kinds of stuff. And to make a long story short, we went through a church split, and one of the most difficult summers of my life. I remember being in the front row. I was about ready to speak, and the complete, the only way I can describe it is I was in the front row and I felt like there were daggers being thrown at my back. Maybe I was making it up, I don't know, but it was just horrible. And so I would be so exhausted from speaking, and I even hired guest speakers. It got to be so bad because I just couldn't even speak. But I went into that room and I would spend hours and hours at a time because my sons were younger, because I've lived in this house for 20 years. My sons were younger, and I would go in there and my wife, Amy, would be at work. And I think it was part depression, but it was also part, I noticed, I had enough wisdom that there was no carnage if I didn't talk to anybody or general interaction. And so I would stay in there and I would sleep because I was so exhausted, and I would pray. And it was at that point it dawned on me that God is pretty creative. God to form David. Here he is, this shepherd boy, and he's been selected, to be king, but he's not king. And Saul is after him, and David spends a lot of time in caves. And I always thought to myself, how does God make King Davids today? How does he make those caves? There's no caves around me, and then I go, whoa, lo and behold, God can make caves anywhere he wants. And for me, it was that bedroom. And so I thought I'd share that with you because this week is on lament and trust. And this is kind of my brief take on it. I love God a whole lot, and I love people a whole lot. I love you a whole lot. But I admit there's been times in my life where I haven't trusted God and I haven't trusted people. So that whole church experience, that hurts. That hurt people. It hurt me a lot, and I wasn't sure how to process all that. And then, I grew up and part of my trust with God is always centered around the money part. And I'm really sorry to share this part with you, but I grew up poor. There were times where we were in, like Section 8 housing. I lived in really bad apartments. My idea of a snow cone was I would go into my grandma's fridge, and she didn't even have a freezer, and it was just like this nasty ice. It wasn't a freezer, but it was this nasty ice that they would have to like defrost every once in a while. And I would get a spoon and I would scrape that ice, stick it in whatever, cup I could find. And I would get a Cool Pop and I'd stick that Cool Pop juice on the top and make myself an icy. One time, my dad worked for switching stories, worked for a trucking company, and we lost our house, and we lived in a center room of a truck stop for a while, and it was just one room, and my family shared a bathroom with truckers that would come in, and it wasn't open to the public, but it was just truckers for this trucking company, and we didn't even have enough money for toilet paper, and so I'd have to take a shower to clean up afterwards. Sometimes when I was a kid, I remember having to go get cans and bottles to recycle them so that we could buy formula for my baby sister. So I don't have a lot of trust. I have trust issues, I guess, with God on the money thing. And so to learn to trust the Lord is a big deal, and to really gut it out with God is important. And so there might be some things that you have trust issues with the Lord. Maybe you've lost somebody. My sister just went through that cancer thing with Jake, my nephew. I don't know what it is for you. You have divorce. You have people that have turned their backs on you. I don't know what your thing is, but here's what I know. That God can handle it. And this week you're kind of processing those types of things. And the backstory, you're going to read about Ruth in the Collins book. And think about what she had to do to go and glean in a field and take advantage of the welfare system. And then she's redeemed by Boaz, the kinsman redeemer. A fascinating story. So the lament, going to God in a gut-wrenching way and really talk about the things that have hurt you, is important in ministry, because one of the reasons I think, honestly, that I'm qualified to talk to you right now has nothing to do with a PhD and writing. It has everything to do with me coming to terms with my pain and coming to terms with things that have hurt me. The Apostle Paul in week 5, he just went through Athens. He's down in Corinth now. And so that's where we get our original picture for the course. That's a Corinthian fountain. He stays there on the second missionary journey for a year and a half. He's going to go back there on his third missionary journey, 3 years. And he stays with Aquila and Priscilla, all tent makers. I used to be a pastor of a larger church, medium-sized church. And now I'm a part of a very small community. And it's a long story of why that works, why I'm in that situation. But we are so gut-wrenchingly honest in that community. When we irritate each other, I mean, there's a lot of offense that happens. We let it fly. But we hug each other and love each other afterwards. And I think about Paul with Aquila and Priscilla, where he was with in the Sanhedrin, or not in it, but on that trajectory. And then he is so honest with Aquila and Priscilla, and he's learning, because honestly, those two, Aquila and Priscilla, they knew what they were talking about. I think Paul learns from these guys. And frankly, in my community, I'm not the smartest one there. Lisa's she's smart. The guy who's one of our main teachers is a professor emeritus, a physics professor at Sac State. And I learned a ton from that guy. And so where I had pain and hurt and trust issues in that former church situation. And now I'm in a situation where there's a traveler that can be very honest. And I've dealt with things in such a way that I am able to be honest and receive critique and just not be hurt about it. And we process those things together. I'm going to wrap up this way. You have got stuff in your life. Could be in a cave right now. There could be issues that's just not even, external doings. I've known people in seminary, some are maybe addicted to pornography, or they're having, too many complications in their marriage, or they gambling, all kinds of stuff. I don't know what that is for you, and you don't need to worry about doing too TMI. You get to divulge what you want to divulge. But this week, I'm going to ask that you come to terms and have a gut-wrenching heart talk with God about some stuff in your life, and let it pour out a little bit in your VF group if need be. Not overly, but just enough to really talk through it, process that, because here's what I know. There's a backside to your life. And lament and learning to trust God after pain, trust God after, whatever that is, and move forward. Whatever your vision for ministry is, it's going to do best if you've dealt with this stuff. Let's go to God honestly this week, and let's learn to trust Him, and let's learn to trust God's people. It's not going to happen in a week, but we can talk about it and at least get a good start. I'll see you next week.